Welcome to the NLC Prep History of Surveying playlist. I've always told people, surveyors are like half detective with that 1 foot in history and the other half computer mad scientist with 1 foot in the future. Well, this playlist is all about the past and I love it. We're going to give you a glimpse into Egypt, Rome, Old England, surveying in colonial America. It's going to be great. This is my favorite playlist so far. So watch a few videos, and if you enjoy it, hit the thumbs up button, and don't forget to hit subscribe and click that bell. Even today, I tell attorneys that possession is 99% of the law. So before we even signed any treaties, we started transporting settlers out there to take over this property. And in blue, you see the states which have adopted the Public Land Survey System. Now, the PLSS is basically a framework to plat, map, divide, and sell real property. You lay a 1 mile by 1 mile grid over 37 states, and you sell each acre for $10 an acre. This was created just about 2 years after we signed the Treaty of Paris by the Land Ordinance Act of 1785, and the PLSS is still going strong today. I'm not sure if you're a fan of spaghetti westerns, but if you watch these westerns, you get the idea that people with rifles and cult peacemakers are the ones who settled the West. Cool guys in hats with guns. But that's not really true. The real people who settled the West were surveyors. People who left the East Coast and who lived out west for years, decades, their entire life, and they braved the elements, they braved Native Americans. In fact, they even braved other powers like France. If the Frenchmen saw a British or an American anywhere near their territory, they would kill them without even thinking twice. So these are the real guys who settled the West with leveling rods and transits. But despite their huge contributions to American history, they were treated very poorly. Let me read you a quote. It says, "And each surveyor shall be allowed and paid at the rate of $2 for every mile in length that he shall run, including the wages of chain carriers, markers, and every other expense attending to the same." So surveyors didn't get paid for a mile they walked, they got paid for every mile they surveyed. And in fact, the $2 per mile included transport to the job site, wages of the employees, food, shelter, protection from Indians, whatever else. So these guys were basically, everyone complains that surveyors charge too little. Well, the reason why surveyors charge too little is because they've been trained for the past 300 years to do just that. We've been working for peanuts ever since the American Revolution, and nothing has changed since. And this $2 per mile is not even slave wage. So it just blows your mind how little money they got paid, but they did it anyways. The primary tool that these forefathers of ours used was the compass. And not just any compass, but the surveyor's compass. The surveyor's compass is very unique for a few reasons. Number one is the Jacob staff. Now this is a stupid picture because the Jacob staff was never pointed directly straight up. The Jacob staff was tilted like the image on the right, and it was tilted so the surveyor could put a plumb bob directly over the point. So the surveyor tilts the Jacob staff, sticks it in the ground, puts a plumb bob directly over his benchmark or his known point, whatever, and he starts surveying. This survey is pretty much the exact same thing we do with total stations. Now I'll give you, it's more time consuming to take the measurements, it's not as accurate, etc. But really, the procedures we have here are the same procedures we use in the modern total station. Quick story. I used to compete at the National Society of Professional Surveyor, NSPS, student competition every year. Now, this NSPS competition was at all different states. So it was in Las Vegas, it was in St. Louis, wherever. And every year the competition was different between colleges. One year, we got a competition to do a traverse with a compass and a chain. It was so cool. You get a big compass, you get a chain, you get a plumb bobs. I mean, it was a big traverse. And not only did we have to do the traverse physically on the ground, but we also had to reduce the traverse measurements using trig tables and old-timey methods. We did get to use a calculator, thank God. But that's how we did it. What a fantastic experience. It's been probably 15 years. It was a blast. I wish we did this stuff more often. Once the compass is set up and placed directly over the point, now it comes time to take the measurements. So you would look through the hole in the back of the compass, look at the hole in the front, and you would sight your object. You're set up over point A, and you're sighting point B. You look down, and you see the compass reads 37 degrees. All right? Compass reads 37 degrees. Pretty accurate. On later compasses, they also had a vernier scale. And the vernier scale lets you measure to the more accurate levels. And it makes it easier to read. And these vertical hairs, which you see on the object to the right, were actually horsehair that was taken from an actual live horse or a dead horse or whatever. So it was animal hair that was used for the object vane. It's amazing. As I said in the previous lecture, this is the same setup as a total station traverse. Set up on one point, measure an angle. Set up on another point, measure an angle. Set up on a third point, measure an angle. Here's something that's cool. In a total station, you measure angles to the right. And you measure angles to the right, and then you reduce the angles to the right to an azimuth. That's a step. But with a compass, you can actually measure to the azimuth, skipping the step with the total station. So now, I'm not going to say computations were easier with the compass. That would be a lie. But there was one less step to reduce your traverse measurements to x and y coordinates with the compass than there is with the total station. And I'm going to conclude this slide by saying that if you've done a total station traverse, you can do a compass traverse. Absolutely. Whether it's an open traverse or a closed traverse or whatever, you could absolutely do this. The one thing that makes compass surveying more complicated, which makes it more frustrating, is that these guys did not have HP 35 calculators in 1835. They had trig tables. And they had a trig table to reduce every angle, every degree, into sine, cosine, and tangent. Why is that? There's no darn calculator. You can't type in 35 degrees, hit tangent. You got to look it up in a book. And then, when you look up the book value, you've got to do your multiplication with the distance to get the actual x and y coordinates. But if you've never gotten to use a trig table in the back of a field book or somewhere else, you got to try it because it's super cool. But if you do it once, you'll never want to do it again because it takes a lot of time to reduce these measurements by hand. So in some respects, traversing with a compass is easier, and in other respects, it's not. We've talked about how compass surveys are done. Now, let's talk about the compass itself. The compass has multiple components. We've got a magnetic needle, which spins around and finds north. We've got a graduated ring, which has the angles on it, the 0 through 360. We've also got an adjustable mirror. And the mirror is a great invention because the mirror allows you to look through the horsehair vane at your target. But as you look through the horsehair vane, you can also read the angle at the same time. So before, you'd have to sight the instrument, take your eyes off the object, look inside the compass. Well, now you can actually sight the object and read the angle at the same time. It's pretty cool. You've got the two vanes, the object vane in the front and the eye vane in the back. And finally, the glass cover, which protects the liquid inside the compass if there is any, or just protects the spinning needle. So the compass has a lot of different parts. And one of those parts is this knob you see on your right. Now, if you can imagine, if you are using a compass, and if that compass is allowed to freely spin wherever it wants to, you're going to break your needle very quickly because it's constantly spinning around. But if you spin that dial on the right, it will lock the compass needle down for transport. Then, when you go to do the actual survey, unlock it, and now you have a free spinning compass again. Get your hands on one of these things, play with it, it's pretty cool. Another invention on the compass was not really any kind of special technology, but just the size. You know, if you have a bigger compass, it's easier to read the angles, number one, and you can also make it more graduated. So go from every 5 degrees in a small compass to every 1 degree in a big compass. So surveyors used big compasses when they were surveying. And these things were not like aluminum alloy. They were metal, steel. So these compasses were heavy, heavy, heavy. Next, I think the biggest invention in compass surveying by far was Bert's solar compass. Unlike all the other compasses before it, Bert's solar compasses had an astronomical tool, basically a sextant on top of it. So the surveyor would find true north using the sextant to set his instrument, and then he would measure the other angles based on true north. So no more worrying about iron ore or other reactive metals which would throw off your magnetic compass. You now have this fully assembled solar compass to both find north and measure different angles in the same instrument. I can't tell you how much of a game changer this was, because before, surveyors were measuring thousands of miles of area, and they had no idea what was underneath the ground. That compass could be totally off, and you could be placing townships and sections 5, 10, 15 degrees off of true north because of giant deposits of ore or other things. So Bert's solar compass was a major, major upgrade of technology. We've spent the past 20 or 30 minutes talking about angles, but the thing we'll conclude with is the other side of the coin. And that side of the coin is called the chain. The surveyor's chain may not look like much, but it is a major upgrade from the darn ropes used by Egyptians. And the chain was created by a guy named Gunther. And Gunther is known for the 2-pole or 4-pole chain, either 50 or 100 links. And this brought a level of systematic error collection. This chain, raised the profession to an entirely new level. It brought an entirely new level of measurement and length collection that we never had in surveying before the 17th century. I can almost guarantee you that you will get a question on the FS or PS exam on the chain. So let's go through it. A typical surveyor's chain measures 66 feet, is divided into 100 links and 4 rods. A chain measures 66 feet, a rod measures 16.5 feet, and a link measures 0.66 feet. There are many other chains other than the Gunthers. We've got the Gunthers, which is 66 feet. We've got the half chain, 33 feet. Another 2 famous people are Ramsden and Rathborn. Rathborn has a 33-foot, 200-link chain. Fascinating. And Ramsden, otherwise known as the engineer's chain, is 100 feet. So know these chains: Gunther's chain, half chain, Ramsden chain, Rathborn chain. Those are the 4 major chains you have to know. Even more important is the numbers. A chain is 66 feet. 80 chains measures 1 mile. 10 chains square is 1 acre. So know how to convert between feet and chains, between feet and links, between feet and rods. Also, how many chains are in an acre and how many chains in a mile. I guarantee you those will be exam questions. So know your chain types and know your chain measurements cold before leaving the lecture.